Ever before he came into office, many around the world have suspected that Trump, the president, will be every inch as controversial, if not more controversial than Trump, the candidate. In all 3 weeks of his presidency, the executive order the president banning people from 7 majority Muslim countries from entering the U.S. has been met with protests in the U.S. and around the world. A U.S. court over the weekend issued a nationwide temporary restraining order against the action. The U.S. government has appealed that order. A hearing has been set for today on whether to allow or reject the ban. Also in the program, I have been talking to the Permanent Secretary of Nigeria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs about the relationship between the U.S. and Nigeria. I asked him if Nigerians should be concerned about Trump's policies. Finally, on the program, we talk about the World Radio Day. I am Segun Ojumu, and this is Hindsight. Segun Ojumu. On this program, we'll be bringing you news, views, and exclusive interviews with
security that cut across humanitarian aid to.
It becomes easier to do business in Nigeria. Now,
Nigeria.
we begin in the U.S., where authorities there have rolled back a controversial travel ban on people from 7 mainly Muslim countries after a judge suspended it. In a dramatic turn of events, the State Department said it was reversing the cancellation of visas, 60,000 of which were revoked after President Donald Trump's order. Judge James Robert ruled there were legal grounds to challenge the ban. His temporary restraining order on Friday halted the ban with immediate effect. Here's the judge making his ruling.
The court finds that for purposes of the entry of the temporary restraining order, that the state has met its burden of demonstrating that it faces immediate and irreparable injury as a result of the signing and implementation of the executive order. I find that the state has satisfied the test that it is likely to succeed on the merits of the claim, which would entitle them to relief. I find that the balance of equities favor the states. And lastly, I find that a temporary restraining order is in the public interest. If I were to apply the Ninth Circuit's alternative test, I would find that the states have established a serious question going to the merits, and that the balance of equities tips sharply in their favor. As such, I find that the court should and will grant the temporary restraining order.
Here's Washington's Attorney General Bob Ferguson speaking moments after the ruling. Now, because when news broke, Mr. Trump called the verdict by the Seattle judge ridiculous and vowed to restore the ban. He kept that vow. The U.S. Justice Department over the weekend filed a court motion against the suspension of the ban. That did not succeed. This is because the U.S. Federal Appeals Court rejected the Trump administration's request to immediately reinstate the travel ban. Now, after the court made its ruling, people affected by the ban treated news of the suspension warily as airlines began allowing them to board. Since then, the State Department reversed visa cancellations, and the U.S. Homeland Security employees were told by the departments to comply with the ruling. In the meantime, after the court's ruling, visa holders from the affected nations began scrambling to get flights to the U.S., fearing they had a slim window to enter America. Now, no matter what has happened, no one can say for sure how all of this will end. On these shores, too, Nigerians are worried about how this will affect them. I have been speaking to the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Shola Enikonlaye, about Nigeria's relationship with the United States. I also asked him if Nigerians are right to be worried about Donald Trump's immigration policy.
That goes for a number of reasons. First, there are fundamental principles, values, and objectives that we share with the United States. And our relation dates back to Nigeria's independence period. It had grown, it had deepened, it has strengthened over the years. And therefore, when you talk of mutuality of interests, whether in the area of peace and security, whether it's in the area of economic cooperation, in terms of development cooperation, etc., these are programs that predate the administration. I don't think if the new government will want to overturn all of this. Of course, there will be tinkering here. We expect that to happen. Which is why a couple of weeks ago we had a retreat to focus essentially on U.S.-Nigeria relations under the new administration. We had this brainstorming session for a whole day, which covers all areas of Nigeria relations with the U.S. And the conclusion of that retreat was that, yes, there are deep cause for concern in terms of the rhetoric of the new president during the election, particularly in areas of immigration. We are concerned that may affect Nigerians, especially those in the U.S. and those who may want to travel to the U.S. And then we mapped out a number of strategies for government to consider.
Speaking to me there was Ambassador Shola Enikonlaye, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We'll take a short break now, and then after that, we'll be talking about the future of the radio and television. It's World Radio Day. Stay with us.
On the 13th of February, join UNESCO and thousands of radio stations around the world and their audiences in celebrating World Radio Day 2017. There are lots of ways to participate and to celebrate how radio is uniquely positioned to bring communities together and promote positive dialogue that enables us to share stories, music, education, news, and culture. Visit worldradioday.org to register or to find events near you, or listen to broadcasts around the world. Because after all, radio is you.
Welcome back to the program. Now, February the 13th is World Radio Day. The radio has come a long way ever since Guglielmo Marconi, an Italian inventor, proved the feasibility of radio communication. Mr. Marconi sent and received his first radio signal in Italy in 1895. By 1899, he flashed the first wireless signal across the English Channel, and 2 years later received the letter S, telegraph from England to Newfoundland. It has been 122 years since Mr. Marconi sent that first radio signal. So, when did the radio get to Nigeria? Well, the answer is 1932. It was brought by the British. 85 years have gone by since that day. In 2011, UNESCO at its 36th General Conference on November the 3rd proclaimed February the 13th as World Radio Day. Today is about celebrating radio, why we love it and why we need it today more than ever. It is a day to remember the unique power of radio to touch lives and bring people together across every corner of the globe. Here in Abuja, UNESCO will be joining hundreds of other countries to celebrate that day. I'm now being joined in the studio by Mr. Macaulay Olushola. To my far left, Mr. Olushola is the National Professional Officer, Communication and Information Section, UNESCO Regional Office. He's based here in Abuja. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
I also have with me Mr. Oluseyi Shore Mekun. He's the National Information Officer of the United Nations Information Center in Lagos. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to you both. Now, tell us, February the 13th, how significant a day is that in the world of the radio? I'll start with you, sir.
Well, the celebration of World Radio Day started in 2012.
Okay.
It's just to propagate the importance of radio, especially in terms of cultural diversity, what it has been able to achieve in the lives of people. And UNESCO, like you rightly said, in 2011, UNESCO proclaimed Radio Day, and we started the celebration in 2012. And here we are today to actually evaluate what radio has been able to impact in the lives of people. Hardly in Nigeria, for instance, you see any house without radio. Even if you don't have your radio as a set, you have it in your phone. And that's why we are coming together today to see how we can celebrate the importance of radio worldwide.
Okay, now in today's world of instant everything, instant messaging, you know, does the radio still have its relevance? Let me ask you that, sir.
Yes, absolutely. Radio still has a lot of relevance and importance, even within the situation we find ourselves with the advent of the social media and other digital platforms.
Yes.
Radio is a personal medium. Radio cuts across socio-cultural platforms, socio-economic status. Radio, the reach of radio, you know, is further than you can imagine. Talk about digital media. You can only access that when you have the bandwidth, when you have the signals, you know. Whereas radio gets to the hard-to-reach communities. For instance, statistics have it that over 60% of the population in the sub-Saharan Africa, including Nigeria, reside in the rural areas. There are, even within the rural areas, there are hard-to-reach communities.
True.
But you find out that if you cannot find any other medium in those communities, you will find a radio. Because one, it is accessible, it is cheap, it is the cost of maintenance is low, and is a veritable source of information. And more importantly, radio provides access. You know, as my colleague in UNESCO said, you know, we in the United Nations we talk about access to information. It's a very critical component of a democratic society.
Sure.
When people have access to information, then they can hold government accountable. If they don't have the information, they cannot ask questions. So radio provides such a platform wherever you are in the country, in the world, whether in the sometimes on the high sea, you can still access. And so you cannot equate the relationship radio gives to an audience with that of the social media. And one cannot displace the other. They can only live side by side and complement one another.
Okay, Mr. Olushola, now the radio, now you've said, from what I've gotten from you, it is non-elitist. You know, if I can put it, the entry point is quite low. With, I don't know, maybe 1,000 naira can get a small transistor radio, unlike having to use your phone and then buying data and all of that.
Sure.
So speak to that, please.
Well, like you said, it's the cheapest means of information that you can get, media that you can get. Even less than 1,000 naira, you can get a radio set. Before now, they used to say radio is asoromagbesi, meaning that it's a means of communication that speaks without getting a feedback. But now, the whole thing has changed. You can easily get information from XYZ corner to another corner via telephone and tell them the happenings. Maybe you are in a traffic and you can call in a radio station and say, this road, there is heavy traffic there. Radio has saved a lot of people, a lot of lives, maybe in an accident. You can easily call an emergency number through the radio station and say, I am so place, this is what is happening here. And through that, a lot of people can quickly listen to what you have said. And maybe an organization like NEMA can come in. So the importance of radio is not questionable. You cannot compare it with the internet that's maybe, like my colleague said, in faraway villages where they don't have internet facility, where they don't even have electricity. But with your 200 naira batteries and 500 naira radio, you have access to everything.
Right. Low entry point for access now. Let's talk about the theme for this year's World Radio Day. Is it radio? The radio is you.
Radio is you.
So what does that speak to?
Yeah, you see, radio is you as the theme of the 2017 World Radio Day gives credence to the personalized tag that radio has. Radio is you means that radio is part of you, is part of your life, is part of everyone's life. It's a personal medium. It's something that has become part of daily living. So radio is you, is to draw attention to the role of radio in the life of everybody. As my colleague said, radio saves life. Talk about when there is a disaster somewhere, people rely on radio for information on what to do, the evacuation point, where to go, even in such a situation when people are displaced. The radio can be used for tracing, what we call tracing in humanitarian field, where they can announce that they've seen so-so person, and then they check with on radio, families can be reunited. Then you also find out that even moving out every day, people get traffic news, traffic information about traffic, where to go to, where to not to go at a particular point in time,
to avoid.
even to road to avoid, even on radio. In some countries, early warning signals of impending disasters and signs are also communicated on radio. So radio, it's you. You cannot do without radio. And it gladdens one to also know that even with the advent of the digital media, you know, the number of online radio listeners are also growing, which means people are not even relying on the traditional transistor radio.
But now they're taking it online.
Taking it online. So which means while the radio is serving its traditional audience of those in the grassroots, then even those up class,
it's also reaching out to them.
It's also reaching out to them. And of course, it is interesting to also note that even daily, the news headlines, people even rely on radio to get it.
Okay. Let me turn to you, Mr. Macaulay. Tell us about you have activities planned for February 13th. Tell us about these activities and why you're doing them.
UNESCO, in collaboration with some other UN agency like UNIC, we are planning a very big event. One is happening in Lagos, one is happening in Bauchi, one is happening in Abuja here. Let me quickly give you what we are doing in Abuja. We are mobilizing about 1,000 radio listeners across board to come with their radio set to meet us at Millennium Park, where the Federal Minister of Information and Culture and the Regional Director will be giving speeches. We want to showcase the importance of radio. Not only that, we have requested that all the radio stations within Abuja, Bauchi should mobilize at least 5 radio listeners that we can give radio to as part of the appreciation of the importance of radio in their life. Lagos too will be doing the same thing. In Lagos, for instance, we have commissioned the students to go to some radio station to go and give testimonies of what radios have done in their lives. Same thing in Bauchi. We are sending some radio sets to Bauchi State, where we intend to have some radio station to buy in this celebration and see that we celebrate the importance of radio. It's going to be a big day for February 13 across board in Nigeria, Bauchi State, Lagos State, and FCT.
Okay, if you can, Mr. The Lagos event, tell us a little bit about it.
Yes, thank you very much. The Lagos event is an extension of what is happening in Abuja, and we will be partnering with a number of radio stations, and it will also interest you to know that we will also be talking in the local language on that day, because you know, we cherish the local language, and we are collaborating with an indigenous language speaking radio station. It will be they will be on board, so we're going to have some students in the studio to talk. It's not going to be a discussion by the UN or by the NGO executive directors. We're going to have interaction with students in the studios, talking about how radio has impacted our lives, how radio has influenced the way we live our life, what radio has done, to us. So we'll be discussing with the students, and this will be across radio stations in Lagos.
Okay, I'm afraid we don't have much time again, but I would like to thank you, Mr. Oluseyi Shoremekun and Mr. Olushola Mokole from UNESCO. Mr. Oluseyi is from the United Nations Information Center in Lagos. We're going to end Hindsight today by bringing you this statement from the High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to Nigeria, Thamburaja Ravantharan. His country is pledging to consolidate its ties with Nigeria. Now, he made this pledge at the weekend during his country's celebration of his 69th independence anniversary. That video comes up shortly, but in the meantime, keep in touch with us on Twitter and via email, the email address on your screen. I am Shegun Ojumu. Goodbye for now.
The establishment of High Commission at each other's capital have been an important milestone in strengthening the bilateral relations between the two countries. Sri Lanka offers a few scholarships for Nigerian students. The cooperation between the two security forces also grows day by day. The total trade between Sri Lanka and Nigeria has increased. The number of Nigerians visiting Sri Lanka. Relations between Sri Lanka and Nigeria has been in good shape. This is a matter of great satisfaction for both countries.